Hello friends, welcome to the Point. In today's session, let's discuss about India under the Mughals. Economic and social life. The Mughal period, it saw important social and economic developments, and during this period, many European travelers and traders they came to India, and their accounts contain a mine of information about a socio-economic conditions of India. In general, as European travelers they described the wealth and prosperity of India and also the luxurious life of the aristocratic classes. So on the other side, they also mentioned the poverty and sufferings of the ordinary people like peasants and artisans. Mughal nobility. The nobles of the Mughal period, they formed a privileged class of society, and most of them were foreigners like Turks and Afghans, but there was a tussle between them throughout this Mughal period, and many of them settled down in India and they made India as their permanent home. They also readily assimilated themselves into the Indian society and culture. So at the same time, they retained some of their personal traits, and from the time of Akbar, the Hindus, particularly Rajputs, were included in the nobility. For example, a mention can be made about Raja Mansingh and Raja Birbal and Raja Todarmal. And later this Marathas also they joined the Mughal service and they rose to the position of nobles. The Mughal nobles were paid high salaries, but their expenses was also very high. Each noble they maintained a large number of servants, horses, elephants, and so on. The nobles they tried to follow the luxurious lifestyle of Mughal emperors, and they wore fine clothes and they imported fruits. Costly jewels were also owned by both men and women, and they also made costly presents to emperors. Rural masses. So while these wealthy people they wore silk and cotton, poor people they wore minimum clothes. So these poor people they suffered from insufficient clothing even during winter. Nikitin he observed that the people of Deccan were barefooted, and it might be due to high cost of leather. Rice, millets and pulses were the staple food of common people. Fish was also popular in coastal regions, and ghee and oil was very cheap at that time, and salt and sugar were more expensive, and plenty of cattle were kept by the rural people, and milk products were available in plenty. Agriculture. An estimate claims that population of India at the beginning of 17th century it was about 125 million, and a plenty of lands were available for cultivation and agricultural purpose. A variety of crops like wheat, rice, gram, barley, pulses were cultivated during those periods, and commercial crops like cotton, indigo, sugarcane and oil seeds were also cultivated. During the 17th century, two new crops, namely tobacco and maize were added. Potato and red chilies came during 18th centuries. India was able to export food items like rice and sugar to their neighboring countries also. Growth of trade. The Indian trading classes were large in numbers and they spread throughout the country, and they were well organized and highly professional. Seth, Bohra traders they were specialized in long distance trade, whereas the local traders they were called as Banik. Another class of traders they were known as Banjaras. These people were specialized in carrying bulk goods. The Banjaras they used to move to long distances with their goods on the back of oxen. Bulk goods were also taken through rivers on the boats. The trading community did not belong to one caste or religion. The Gujarati merchants included Hindus, Jains and Muslims. In Rajasthan, Oswals, Maheshwaris and Agarwals they came to be called as Marwaris. Multanis, Khatris and Afghanis, they conducted trade with Central Asia. In South India, the Chettis on the Coromandel coast and the Muslim merchants of the Malabar were the most important trading communities. Bengal exported sugar, rice as well as delicate muslin and silk. The Coromandel coast, it became the center of textile production. Gujarat, it was the entry point of foreign goods, and from there fine textiles and silk were taken to North India. Indigo and food grains were exported from North India through Gujarat, and it was also the distribution center for the luxury products of Kashmir such as shawls and carpets. The major imports into India were certain metals like tin and copper, war horses and luxury items like ivory and so on. The balance of trade, it was maintained by the import of gold and silver. The growth of the foreign trade, it had resulted in the increased import of gold and silver in the 17th century. The Dutch and English traders who came to Gujarat during the 17th century, they found that Indian traders were alert and brisk. Cultural developments under the Mughals. The Mughal period, it witnessed a significant and widespread development in cultural activity, and it was manifest in the sphere of art and architecture, painting, music and literature. And in this cultural development, Indian traditions were blended with Turco-Iranian culture, which was brought into India by the Mughals. The architecture of the Mughals, it includes magnificent forts, palaces, public buildings, mosques and mausoleums. The Mughals were fond of laying gardens with running water, and some of the Mughal gardens like Nishat Bagh in Kashmir, the Shalimar Bagh at Lahore and the Pinjore Garden in Punjab and so on. And during the reign of Sher Shah, the mausoleums at Sasaram in Bihar and the Purana Kila near Delhi were built, and these two monuments, they are considered as the architectural marvels of medieval India. Large scale construction of buildings were started with the advent of Akbar, and he built many forts, and the most famous one was Agra Fort, and it was built in red sandstone. His other forts are at Lahore and Allahabad. The climax of fort building, it reached its climax during the reign of Shah Jahan. The famous Red Fort at Delhi with its Rang Mahal, Diwan-e-Am and Diwan-e-Khas was his creation. Akbar also built a palace cum fort complex at Fatehpur Sikri, which indicates the city of victory, 36 kilometers from Agra. Many buildings in Gujarati and Bengali styles are found in this complex. Other important buildings at Fatehpur Sikri are Jodhbai's Palace and Panch Mahal with 5 stories. During Akbar's reign, the Humayun's tomb was built at Delhi, and it had a massive dome of marble, and it may be considered the precursor of Taj Mahal. Akbar's tomb at Sikandara near Agra, it was completed by Jahangir, and Nur Jahan built the tomb called Itimadullah at Agra, and it was constructed wholly of white marble with a floral designs which is made up of semi-precious stones on the walls, and this type of decoration was called Petra Dura, and this method became more popular during the reign of Shah Jahan. This Petra Dura method, it was used on large scale in Taj Mahal by Shah Jahan, and Taj Mahal is considered a jewel of builder's art, and it contains all the agricultural forms developed by the Mughals. Paintings and music. The contribution of Mughal paintings was laid by Humayun when he was staying in Persia. He brought with him 2 painters called Mir Said Ali and Abdul Samad. He brought them to India, and these 2 painters, they became famous during Akbar's reign, and Akbar commissioned the illustrations of several literacy and religious texts. He invited a large number of painters from different parts of the country to his court, and both Hindus and Muslims joined in this work. Baswan, Miskina and Dashwant, they attained great positions as Akbar's court artists. And the illustrations of Persian versions of Mahabharata and Ramayana, they were produced in miniature form, and many other Indian fables became the miniature paintings in the art studio that was established by Akbar. The most important work is Humasnama. It consisted of 1200 paintings. Indian colors such as peacock blue, Indian red began to be used during this phase. Mughal paintings, they reached its climax during the reign of Jahangir. He employed a number of painters like Abul Hasan, Bishan Das, Madhu, Anand, Manohar, Govardhan and Ustad Ali Mansur. And apart from painting the scenes of hunting, battles and royal courts, progress was made in portrait painting and paintings of animals, and many albums containing paintings and calligraphy were produced during the Mughal period. And later, the influence of European painting could be seen. So music had also been developed under Mughals, and Akbar patronized Tansen of Gwalior. Tansen composed many ragas. Jahangir and Shah Jahan were also fond of music. Language and literature. Persian language became widespread in the Mughal Empire by the time of Akbar's reign. Abul Fazl, he was a great scholar and historian of his period, and he set a style of prose writing, and it was followed by many generations. Many historical works were written during this period, and they include Aini Akbari and Akbarnama, which was authorized by Abul Fazl. The leading poet of that period was Brother Abul Faizi. The translation of Mahabharata into Persian language, it was done under his supervision. Utbi and Naziri were two other leading Persian poets. Jahangir's autobiography, Tujuk-i Jahangiri, it was famous for its style, and he also patronized many scholars like Giyas Beg, Nakib Khan and Nimatullah. Shah Jahan also patronized many writers and historians like Abdul Hamid Lahori, who is the author of Padshah Nama, and Inayat Khan. He wrote Shah Jahan Nama. Regional languages such as Bengali, Oriya, Rajasthani and Gujarati had also developed during this period, and many devotional works including Ramayana and Mahabharata were translated into regional languages. And from the time of Akbar, Hindi poets, they were attached to the Mughal courts, and the most influential Hindi poet was Tulsidas, and he wrote the Hindi version of Ramayana called Ramacharita Manasa. So in the next session, let's discuss about the Marathas. Thank you.